In the alley's shadows, a young blonde lady hesitated at the threshold of her adultery. But before she could cross, fate's hand intervened. In an instant, her life was extinguished by an unknown assailant, leaving her dreams and desires unfulfilled, forever frozen in the moment of temptation. This is the terrible story of Holly Bobo. Come and join us as we unravel this horrific crime.
Finally, after 6.5 years, I do feel that we got justice for our daughter. Thank you.
There were only about 2,500 people living in the rural Tennessee town of Decatur County, and farms and woodlands dominated the surrounding terrain. Holly Bobo, a 20-year-old nursing student, grew up in this place. Karen and Dana Bobo were Holly's parents. Clint, Holly's elder brother, was 5 years her senior. Holly's mother, Karen, was an instructor at Scotts Hill Elementary. Whitney Duncan, a country singer, is Holly's cousin and the family's musical link. Holly performed as a singer as well. Growing up in a Christian home, Holly had a great bond with her mother. Those who got to know her better than her surface-level timidity discovered a lively and humorous personality. Not only did Holly have familial ties, but she also had a lover, Drew Scott, who was looking forward to a future with her. Holly was excited to begin a career in healthcare and was studying nursing at the University of Tennessee. Holly's goals for the future were to start a life with Drew and change the world as a nurse. One day, Holly got up early on the morning of April 13, 2011. At 4:30 a.m., she had already risen and was studying for her exam, which was scheduled for 8 a.m. Her mother, Karen, had made her a packed lunch before she left for work. Her boyfriend, Drew, called her at 7:30 in the morning to tell her that he was hunting turkey on Holly's grandmother's property. Following their brief exchange, Holly packed up her things and headed to the driveway so she could leave for school. James Barnes, a neighbor, heard what sounded like an argument next door at 7:45 in the morning. A woman's voice could be heard yelling for someone to stop. James looked into the woods, intrigued and alarmed, but the cause of the disturbance remained obscure. The next terrifying noise that chilled him to the bone was screams. James, troubled by what he had heard, called his mother right away and asked her to tell Holly's mother, Karen, about the unsettling noise he had heard in their home. Meanwhile, Holly's brother Clint was awakened from sleep by the family dog's incessant barking. When he looked into what was going on, he heard tense foreign voices. He noticed two figures in the driveway having what appeared to be a furious argument as he lifted the window blinds. He deduced that Drew, Holly's boyfriend, was the other figure after realizing that one of them was hers. Because of the stranger's camouflage clothing, Clint thought the man was Drew. Clint knew that same morning Drew was going to go hunting for turkeys because they had spoken the previous evening. Clint was perplexed and hesitant to break up what may have been a fight between the two. Since he was unsure of the circumstances and had just woken up, he tried to get in touch with his mother to find out if Holly didn't have school. He tried calling, but she didn't pick up, so he texted her in the hopes that she would. Karen was informed of the specifics by James's mother in the meantime, and she promptly called home. Clint responded asking about Holly's plans for school because she was out with Drew. That was when Karen became aware that something was wrong. Still, she was positive it was not Drew, so she told his son Clint to go fetch a shotgun and shoot the guy right away. Perplexed, Clint asked his mother whether she would like him to shoot Drew, but Karen hung up the receiver. Then her son went to the back door and saw the man and Holly making their way into the woods. Holly wasn't being pulled. She was walking on her own initiative. In response to his mother's request, Clint went through an open garage and got a rifle. Outside, he noticed a blood puddle next to Holly's car. His worry drove him to contact 911. Karen called emergency services in distress at the same time. She drove herself home with a friend since she was in a panic. Karen came at 8:10 a.m., followed by the authorities. Desperate to find her daughter, Karen called out for Holly as she made her way through the woods. Soon after, Holly's father Dana returned home to see the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, and U.S. Marshals all over the property. But the situation appeared disorganized and disorderly, with individuals standing around aimlessly, as if they didn't know what to do. Dana became agitated and begged the authorities to take immediate action so that Holly may return. Dana struggled with the idea that the kidnapper might have known his daughter, with suspicion hanging over someone who might have known Holly, her routine, and the area. Afterwards, the detectives verified that Holly's bloodstain was, in fact, the one in the garage. This confirmed that the woman was in danger, so the entire community of Decatur County rallied together to find her. Day after day, thousands of volunteers, search dogs, aircraft, and authorities scoured the area in an effort to find the missing woman. In an effort to locate Holly's cell phone, the police also contacted AT&T. After following the ping, they discovered that her phone had traveled through Decatur County, first moving north toward a forested region close to Interstate 40, and then taking a different path that led them south. The cell phone stopped moving on Gooch Road between 8:30 and 9 a.m. Clint found himself under investigation as the police quickly investigated the potential that the culprit might be inside the residence. In an effort to dispel any suspicions, authorities looked into him straight away and discovered what may have been scratches on his body. His phone was tracked, his computer was inspected, and he took 2 polygraph exams. He was eventually cleared of any role in his sister's disappearance. In the days and weeks following the kidnapping, a trail of evidence was found along rural roads. Her mother's packed lunch for her that morning, together with her homework, notepad, and phone, were all strewn about the place. After Holly was kidnapped for a week, the neighborhood came together for a somber vigil, holding out hope and offering prayers for her safe return. Decatur County, determined to bring Holly home, held fast to the solidarity that typified small-town communities in the face of uncertainty. The names Zach Adams, his brother Dylan, cousin Jason Autry, and friend Shane Austin emerged as key players in the inquiry of Holly's kidnapping over the course of several weeks. These males had a terrible reputation for using illegal drugs and were well known in the neighborhood as delinquents. Zach Adams was the only member of the group that the cops noticed. He had a lengthy criminal record that included violence, robbery, and arrests for offenses involving illegal substances. He had even threatened to kill his grandparents in 2005 and shot his own mother in the knee in 2004. Given Zach's turbulent past, the police made the decision to visit his residence. Zach angrily denied having anything to do with Holly's disappearance, even in the face of the suspicions that surrounded him. He offered an alibi by saying that on the morning Holly vanished, he was at home with his brother Dylan and girlfriend Rebecca Earp. The police released him since there was insufficient evidence to make an arrest. The investigators turned their attention on Terry Britt, a registered criminal who resided close to Holly's residence in Decatur County. Britt had been incarcerated for kidnapping and other illegal activities for a considerable period of his life. He had a reputation for picking out blonde, youthful, and blue-eyed ladies, much like Holly. Holly vanished one day, and his address in northern Decatur County was in the general direction of her phone. Britt's first reaction upon the police knocking on his door was a preemptive denial. He had already declared his innocence and stated that he had not taken advantage of anyone before the police had even said a word. According to Britt's alibi, he was in the yard with his wife, purchasing a bathtub, but there was no record of the sale in the store. Authorities secured a search warrant as their suspicions grew. They brought in cadaver dogs to search his property. The dogs indicated possible locations in 2 of Britt's cars and on several of the tools in his home. Even after obtaining these objects for DNA analysis, no solid proof emerged. In an attempt to learn more about the case, authorities wiretapped Britt's phone and bugged his home in the hopes of recording any potentially damning exchanges. But since there were no breakthroughs from the spying, many people questioned whether Britt should be cleared of all charges. But then there was a taped exchange between Britt and TBI investigator Terry Dicus.
She's young, pretty, perfect, somewhat body. Okay, like a toy. You can't wait to get her to wherever he's going to take her to because he's wanting that body. But here comes the reality. Now I've got a body. What am I going to do with it? If you keep it, you got to feed it. You got to hide it. And if you kill it, what are you going to do with it?
When the suspect seemed to be having disturbing dreams about taking Holly hostage, Britt insisted on his innocence in spite of the upsetting material, and detectives had a difficult time establishing a strong connection between him and Holly's abduction. Later, in Britt's safe, a handwritten receipt for the bathtub was found. Investigators chose to distance themselves from Terry Britt because the case had reached a dead end. The inquiry appeared to be at a standstill for 3 years, until a noteworthy breakthrough occurred in February 2014. One of the 4 guys who had been questioned regarding Holly's abduction, Zach Adams, was in trouble once more. He was charged with robbery this time around, as well as threatening to shoot his girlfriend's sister. Zach was imprisoned due to these allegations. Dylan, his brother, had his own legal troubles due to gun theft while he was imprisoned. Dylan's IQ was below average, and he had a learning problem. His grandfather observed that he frequently mixed up the facts and tales. Despite this, he was considered sufficiently self-sufficient by the authorities because he obtained a driver's license. Dylan finally reached a plea agreement that resulted in his release from the gun charges. The condition stipulated that he would live with a retired police officer who happened to be a friend of the Bobo family. A call to emergency services 5 weeks after Dylan moved in with the retired police officer revealed additional details about the case, which was already complicated. Dylan said he knew what had happened to Holly. In his story, he claimed to have seen Holly early on April 13th in Zach's living room, sitting in a green chair with a pink shirt on. 2 other people were in the room: Shane, their acquaintance, and Jason, his cousin. Dylan went on to say that these individuals had used Holly, even recording the unsettling behaviors on camera. Zach had been making creepy jokes about Holly's disappearance for more than 3 years, claiming with confidence that the police would never find her. There have even been rumors that he boasted about taking advantage of Holly. According to his evidence, he had videotaped himself doing disgusting things with her, which corroborated Dylan's account. Law enforcement was unable to locate the purported videotape nevertheless. Even though the alleged videotape was never found and Dylan later withdrew his first confession due to claims of coercion, Dylan, Zach, Jason, and Shane were all arrested as a result of these admissions. It was eventually discovered that Holly's mother, Karen, had taught Zach and Jason when they were in elementary school. Shane received immunity on April 30th, 2014, in return for his assistance. But this immunity was taken away after only 3 weeks because of claims that he had stopped cooperating. A local man named Larry Stone made a somber find on September 13th, 2014, while out in the woods looking for ginseng 5 months later. A human head and a pail full of human bones were found. A bullet wound was piercing the skull from the rear through the left cheekbone. It was established that these bones belonged to Holly Bobo. Personal belongings, including purses, lipstick, pens, and even Holly's inhaler, were discovered next to the bone material. The emotional toll that Holly's family was taking was demonstrated during the trial when Karen fainted upon seeing the retrieved items. One of the suspects, Shane, was discovered dead in a hotel room in February 2015 after committing suicide while the inquiry was ongoing. In the course of their 3-year court battle, Zach, Dylan, and Jason, the 3 surviving suspects in Holly's case, entered not guilty pleas to charges of kidnapping, criminal physical behavior, and murder. Investigators were ferociously pursuing any confessions from the defendants during this time. Following years of adamantly claiming his innocence, Jason reached an agreement with the prosecution in 2017. He entered into an agreement to testify against the other accused in the September 2017 trial, in exchange for an 8-year sentence on counts of aggravated kidnapping and solicitation to commit murder. Jason's testimony contained a narrative that differed from what Dylan had previously said. Jason claims that when he arrived at Shane's residence, he expected to see illegal substances being made, but instead, he discovered that Holly had already been abducted and attacked by Zach, Dylan, and Shane. Jason said he saw Dylan set fire to stuff in a big barrel as Zach was waiting for his pickup truck. Zach then allegedly asked Jason to assist him in burying a body that was covered in a blanket in the bed of his truck. In return, Jason requested recreational drugs and consented to help Zach conceal Holly's body. While they were traveling, he observed that the truck was missing shovels and a pickaxe, so Jason suggested that they throw the body into the ocean. He gutted Holly in order to keep the body submerged, since he said that her intestines were the only thing keeping her afloat. After that, they planned to dispose of Holly's body by driving to an abandoned location close to the Tennessee River. While traveling to this place, Zach snidely boasted that he had taken advantage of Holly in Shane's grandmother's barn, and that Dylan and Shane had done the same. When they got to the lonely place by the river, Jason claimed to have seen Holly's foot move as they laid her body down. A faint sound of distress emanated from the blanket as well. He informed Zach of this, which alarmed him, and Zach took a revolver out of his car and shot her in the head. The gun fired 3 times, and they heard a boat approaching from nearby. In fear that the group would be discovered, they quickly put the body back in the truck. Zach allegedly approached Jason after this incident and asked to kill his brother Dylan, among other heinous requests. The goal was to stop Dylan from talking about what had happened with Holly, who was often talking about it. Zach promised Jason a share of his money after his affluent grandfather passed away in exchange. Accepting Zach's offer, Jason took Dylan fishing in a bass boat on the Tennessee River with the intention of shooting and killing him there. But another fisherman, who knew Dylan's grandfather and recognized Dylan, disrupted his plot. Jason's goals were foiled by this meeting, and he never tried it again. Jason further alleged that Zach had stated they were at Holly's house that fatal morning teaching Clint how to prepare drugs. But they got there early and they ran into Holly, who let out a scream at seeing them. This was the reason behind their kidnapping of the woman. Clint refuted the claims. After all, he had been cleared when he first became a subject of attention. Jason's testimony made Zach the only person who might be considered a suspect. But there were a number of problems with Zach's engagement in Holly's situation. He was kilometers away from the place where they had traced Holly's phone when authorities plotted his phone's ping to Holly's that morning. Nevertheless, a number of witnesses insisted that they saw Zach kill Holly. A noteworthy witness was Rebecca, who was his girlfriend at the time. Jennifer Thompson, Zach's lawyer, tried to undermine Rebecca during the trial by bringing up her suspected drug use and making suggestions that she had a hazy recall. Thompson went on to suggest that Rebecca had lied because TBI investigator Valerie Trout had threatened her. Attorney Thompson said that the police had unfairly singled out his client and that they were determined to find someone to blame for Holly's death. In spite of all of this, as well as the fact that Zach Adams did not match Clint's description of the abductor, Zach Adams was found guilty on September 22, 2017, of Holly Bobo's kidnapping, assault, and murder. Zach was initially going to be executed, but his petition to be given a life term in prison was accepted. Zach filed an appeal for a new trial 5 years later in 2022, but the Tennessee Appeal Court turned it down. Dylan Adams, Zach's brother, entered an Alford plea in 2018 to a reduced charge of murder facilitation, which led to the 35-year sentence he was then serving. However, in September 2020, Jason Autry was allowed to leave prison. But a few months later, he was charged with a federal firearms offense in 2021, bringing him fresh legal issues. The Holly Bobo Act, which aims to enhance the Tennessee Endangered Persons Alert Program in honor of Holly, was sponsored by Tennessee legislators in 2020. The measure raises the previous age limit of 18 to 21 and permits the TBI to issue endangered person alerts for any missing individual under that age. This was put into action in January of 2021. Holly's family stated that in spite of the difficulties and legal complications, they thought the correct people had been imprisoned. After Zach was found guilty and given a sentence, Karen spoke to him immediately. It's noteworthy that Karen urged Clint to shoot Holly's companion over the phone that morning. Though she had merely been informed by a neighbor that they had heard a scream coming from the Bobo property, it's almost as if she understood what was going on. Who did she think Holly was with? Why was she so certain that Clint should get a gun and kill somebody, when she didn't even know what was going on at the time? I guess these questions will remain unknown.
Finally, after 6.5 years, I do feel that we got justice for our daughter. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for sticking with us today. Check out this other thrilling videos for you to watch, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe and like button, and let us know down below your thoughts on today's case. Until then, take care.